Am I the asshole for not letting my cousin bring their newborn baby to my wedding? I, 26 female, got married about 6 months ago. It was amazing and everything I dreamed of as a little girl. Even before I was engaged or planning a wedding, I knew I did not want children under the age of 10 at my wedding unless my partner had kids that needed to be included. They did not. To give a bit of background, my parents are the younger siblings of 6 children each, so my family is quite big and my cousins are all older than me. When planning my wedding, I was told by the catering company I hired that even if they are less than a year old, if they eat a bit of food, we will charge the $65 per plate. Weddings are expensive. This requirement, though, was going to help me back my claim to not let any kids younger than 10 to come, or so I thought. We sent out the save the dates. All my cousins called telling me they were excited, everything seemed okay because all of them seemed fine with the children rule. This lasted until the invitations were sent out. To avoid anyone being confused on who were allowed to RSVP, my mom and I pre-filled out the numbers of guests attending for each party. As those who know, you need to have your final numbers in for everything at least a month in advance, so we required all RSVPs be sent back a month before the wedding. The time came to tally up numbers and my cousin, 34M, and his wife, 32F, have yet to respond, so I reach out. Nothing. Wait a week and reach out again. Nothing. Now, to put some background on us, I talked to this pair almost weekly. They were the siblings I never had. This ghosting was weird. So I go over to their place to see if they could talk in person. I get there and see both cars are home. I knock on the door to avoid waking the baby. My cousin's wife swings open the door already with an angry look. I ask to come in. No. I ask if we can talk. No. Finally my cousin appears and his wife runs off crying. I ask why they hadn't RSVP'd back and what's going on. He tells me I'm a jerk and asshole for not allowing them to bring their kid and they hope my wedding goes terrible. He then closes the door, leaving me shocked. To give more background, the birth and conception of the kid was rough, so this baby is a miracle. I love this kid, just don't want it at my wedding. The day before the wedding my aunt calls demanding why I won't invite my cousins and why her dill won't come out of the house. This causes half of my mom's family to not show. The wedding still happened and is said awesome. My mom's side of the family still refuses to talk to us and are requesting I apologize to my cousin and his wife for not inviting them and their baby to my wedding. I really love them and never meant to make them feel this way, but this was how I wanted my wedding. So am I the asshole if I stand my ground and not apologize? Edit. Was just informed a 9-month-old isn't a newborn, it's just a baby, so it's a baby. Honestly, not the asshole. I've got 4 kids, and if someone told me that their wedding was a no-kids event, I'd get a friggin' babysitter. You don't get to make demands for accommodations at someone else's wedding. Not the asshole and don't apologize, ever. You did nothing wrong. Are they footing the bill? No. Is it their wedding? No. Honestly, not the asshole. I've got 4 kids, and if someone told me that their wedding was a no-kids event, I'd get a friggin' babysitter. You don't get to make demands for accommodations at someone else's wedding. Not the asshole. I doubt the baby cares about not being invited. What the? No, you don't apologize. They need to grow the fuck up. Am I the asshole for not eating cake that I knew I wouldn't like? To start off, a little background. I was diagnosed with autism a few months ago, but I've displayed traits of neurodivergency since I was a little kid. One of these traits was a major dislike of certain tastes and textures, as well as not always behaving accordingly in certain social situations. Not a lot of my extended family knows because I don't see them very often because they live towards the northeast of the country while I live down in the southeast. So, now, on with the story. I, 17F, was at a family gathering with my extended family a few days ago. It was a big get-together with lots of different food and drinks. Around 5 p.m., a massive cake was brought out for everyone. It was a sponge cake, topped with whipped cream and various fruits. I knew I wasn't going to eat any of the cake because whipped cream, strawberries and raspberries, which were on the cake, are some of the foods that agitate my sensory issues. I said out loud that I wouldn't like any and began to walk away. My cousin called after me and said that she worked really hard on it and it would be really disrespectful if I didn't even bother to try it. I tried to explain that I couldn't tolerate certain textures because of my autism. She said I was making up excuses and that I'm perfectly normal and just attention-seeking. I brushed her off and left the room and just chilled in the living room for a while. My mom took my cousin's side and said what I did was selfish and that I was using my disorder as a get-out-of-jail-free card. I went non-verbal until the next morning, and then that afternoon we drove home, where my mom grounded me for 2 days for how I treated my cousin. So Reddit, did I deserve my punishment? Am I the asshole? Edit. Just to clarify a few things. 1. When I say I spoke out loud, it wasn't like I yelled and then stormed off. I saw the cake and I said to myself, oh, I don't want any. But it was a little louder than when I usually talk to myself, and my cousin must have overheard. 2. I didn't see the cake until it had been in the room for maybe 10 minutes. This is because the cake was set on a table in the corner of the room and people were crowded around it taking slices. When I got a chance to take a piece, I realized I didn't want any. 3. I didn't get up from a table and storm out of the room. We were all standing around the room and eating off paper plates. When I realized I didn't want any cake, I just set the paper plate down, casually turned away and walked out of the room. Also, thank you to the people who informed me on the difference between being non-verbal and having selective mutism. I usually become unable to speak when I'm stressed, angry, embarrassed or upset, and it takes a while for my voice to come back, and I know now that's called selective mutism. Info. Did anyone ask if you wanted cake before you said you would not like any? You are the asshole for making an announcement that you wouldn't like it. From the get-go, the other attendees get a message: Op thinks the cake is not good and not worth even trying, it's disrespectful and rude. You could have just walked off and explained the situation when offered a slice directly. Not the asshole your mother and cousin are. I don't have any food issues, but if I don't want something I will not eat it, and I don't care who doesn't like it. I am NT. I think. But I dislike sponge cake and whipped cream, what an utter waste of calories. I would have proclaimed it was a lovely cake and looked delicious, but I couldn't eat another bite or something, if asked why I wasn't eating it. I never announce my dislike, I just avoid it. Only once did someone insist that I take it with me. I gave it to my nephew, out of the sight of the cake giver. I think OP's relatively new diagnosis is driving her to speak up. She needs to learn how to handle things. Not the asshole. I'm sorry your family and so many commenters are being as to you. You shouldn't be required to lie to people when you don't want to eat something. You shouldn't have to put up with being told that your experience of your reality isn't true based on the opinion of someone who doesn't even really know you and clearly knows nothing about autism. I'm sorry your mother is so horrifically unsupportive. You shouldn't be punished for simply existing honestly as an autistic person. The absolute ease with which people lie and the anger they display when people refuse to compromise their own integrity and do it too is repulsive. Would I be the asshole for telling my daughter the truth about her dad? I, 45 female, divorced my ex, 49 male, about 10 years ago after he accused me of infidelity. We have 3 kids, 17 male, 13 female, 12 female, and for the first 2 kids, it took quite a while to conceive. We originally wanted 3 kids back to back to back, but things didn't go according to plan. When I was pregnant with my youngest, Julie, fake name, he started getting distant. He always blamed himself for our issues conceiving, even though we never got things tested. So when I was pregnant with Julie so quickly after our middle child, his behavior changed. After she was born, he'd say things like, "How come she doesn't look like me as much as Amy, our middle?" and then straight up accused me of cheating on him. That's when things fell apart. I never cheated on him. I never did anything of the sort. But the final straw was when he demanded a DNA test. I told him if he doesn't trust me and takes the test, then I will file for divorce. He took the test, Julie is his. But the damage was done. We divorced when Julie was 2. His relationship with Julie has always been cold. He would call his 2 other kids nicknames like Buddy and Sweetie, but he would always call her Julie. Julie, unlike my 2 other kids, was always into sports. She's really good at soccer. And suddenly, my ex now has more interest in her. He's attending her games and even drives her out to tournaments a few hours away. Apparently he talks a lot about her, because our mutual friends would say, "Jake said Julie was doing so well in soccer," when he never really talked about her at all before this. I know he is only interested in her because of her abilities and it hurts me. I told myself I would play nice because Julie is happy and that's the most important thing. Recently on a long tournament trip, it was just me and Julie in the car and she asked why her dad suddenly started liking her. She told me she always wondered why she wasn't given the same attention as her siblings and asked what happened and why did we get divorced. My go-to line for the divorce question is sometimes people fall out of love with each other and that's what happened. And from my understanding, that's what my ex also said. But when she was talking about this, I looked over and saw she had tears in her eyes. I talked to my parents and some friends, and half of them are telling me she needs to know, and the other half tell me that I would be an asshole for ruining a father-daughter relationship that finally got off the ground. I know he doesn't deserve it, but Julie does. She deserves a dad that loves her and treats her like his other kids, and her finding out the truth may ruin that. I mean, my ex already ruined it for 12 years. So, would I be the asshole if I tell Julie the truth about her dad? Now I was prepared to tell you to clench your teeth and don't tell her cause she does not deserve that burden. But then I read she already knows, noticed and is fully aware of her father's change. It must have been really horrible before. So now I think you should explain carefully, but truthfully. She can move on from there. Not the asshole fuck that guy. Tell Julie the truth, but very gently. Don't include the messy details, though. You need to talk with a therapist about this. I don't think it's fair to tell her that he's only around because of the sports. It might be what brought them together. I think he's a schmuck, but at least he's now present. She also needs therapy because holy shit, that's terrible. Don't take your family's advice. Just talk with a therapist on the appropriate response to her questions. How about you ask a child's therapist? Your daughter has known her father has disliked her for her entire life. She has lived quietly with that pain for 12 years. It's absolutely heartbreaking and she deserves the truth. Perhaps you can talk to a counselor about the best way to have that discussion. She absolutely deserves love and attention from a father. He to all intents and purposes abandoned her from birth without any proof whatsoever that she was not his, and blamed her for being born. He deserves nothing. But if she wants the relationship, which is her decision to make, she must know everything. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my husband fix my cultural food? Cultural background. I, 32F, am Indian American. My nationality is American and my ethnicity is Indian. Married to my husband, 32M, who is German, Irish, Polish American. We've been married for a little less than a year, and living together for 2 years now. My husband and I cook dinner for each other equitably. I cook dinner more often just because I am typically more free most evenings. But I do not mind, and he also cooks dinner regularly. Recently my mom has been teaching me familial Indian recipes more and more frequently in hopes to widen my culinary knowledge for a family. Because of this, I've been introducing more and more Indian foods to my husband. Until now, he's been really enthusiastic about it and enjoys the food and flavors I've introduced to him. For reference, it's mostly been spicy curries when I've cooked Indian food. The problem started when I made dal for him, which if you're not familiar, is a lentil dish that's more umami than it is spicy, but it's really flavorful in its own right. When I served it to him and he took a bite, I saw noticeable disappointment on his face. I asked him what was wrong, and he said that he thought I forgot to add spice to it. I laughed because I thought he was joking, but he seemed dead serious. I told him I had used spice, they just weren't spicy in the traditional sense. But he insisted he wanted it spicy, and I said that it was just how it was made. We went back and forth for a while, and I eventually got really mad because it felt like he was disrespecting my family traditions by insisting something was wrong. At some point he even said, "It's okay, I'll fix it myself," and I got really frustrated and told him he isn't allowed to touch the pot of dal. I told him he could reheat leftovers and or make something else, because we've never altered the food the other made just because we didn't like it. I specifically told him he has no place to correct me or modify my cultural food, and I just won't make it for him anymore if he doesn't like it. He said I was being completely unreasonable for not letting him fix the dish. I forget what he said specifically and I don't want to misquote him, but the gist of it was that he expected differently from my cuisine, which really set me off. It's been a few days and it's kinda been a bit bitter at mealtime. He hasn't apologized to me and I think he's expecting one from me, but I'm really not sure how I'm in the wrong. Was I being too defensive, or was he just insensitive? Edit. On the dinner table was also spicy side dishes, so if he wanted to he could have mixed them into his food to make it spicier, but he wanted to alter the whole dish, which I was against. Not the asshole. If he wanted to add some seasonings to spice up his own food then okay, but don't go messing with a whole pot of food. Not the asshole, he can do whatever he wants to his food but not the pot. Also he was being pretty rude about the dish. As someone has already pointed out, there are lots of recipes of dal and many of them are spicy. Order it from a restaurant in the UK and it will have whole chilies in and blow your head off. Info. When he said he wanted to fix the food, Was he referring to his own plates or to his plus yours plus the leftovers on the pot? He can fix his plate, nothing wrong with that. You both made a mountain out of a molehill.